February 20th, 1943, north of Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. The battle report would never fully capture what the German tank commanders witnessed that morning. American Sherman tanks executing maneuvers that defied everything Wehrmacht doctrine said was possible without visual signals. Through the dust and smoke of the North African battlefield, 5 Sherman tanks, separated by broken terrain with no line of sight between them, converged on German positions with timing that seemed supernatural. No flags, no flares, no dispatch riders racing between vehicles. Yet they moved as a single organism, each tank covering blind spots the others couldn't see, each crew knowing exactly where their comrades were positioned. In German Panzer IVs equipped with Fu G5's radios, tank commanders struggled to hear their own company leaders through static that overwhelmed their amplitude modulation systems. The 10-watt German transmitters, state-of-the-art by the 1930s standards, couldn't penetrate more than a few hundred meters when tanks were moving. Most German tanks carried only receivers, unable to report what they saw or call for help. The Americans were operating with technology the Germans didn't know existed. Frequency modulation radios in every single tank, crystal-controlled precision, 25 watts of transmission power, and clarity that cut through engine noise and battlefield chaos like a knife through paper. 8,000 miles from Detroit's assembly lines, the most decisive technological advantage of World War II was revealing itself, not in armor thickness or gun caliber, but in the invisible electromagnetic waves that connected every American tank crew in ways the Wehrmacht never imagined possible. The transformation began on July 22, 1941, when the United States Army standardized the Signal Corps radio sets SCR 508, SCR 528, and SCR 538 for all medium tanks. While German forces were advancing through the Soviet Union using tactics that depended on radio communication between command vehicles, American engineers at the Galvin Manufacturing Company, later known as Motorola, were perfecting frequency modulation technology that would render German systems obsolete. The engineering team included Daniel E. Noble, who conceived the application of FM technology in military vehicles, and Henryk Magnoski, the principal RF engineer who solved the technical challenges of installing sophisticated electronics in the harsh environment of a tank. Their creation weighed 181 pounds and transformed every Sherman tank into a node in the world's first battlefield network. The BC604 transmitter generated 25 watts of power, 2.5 times the German FUG-5's output. Operating in the 20.0 to 27.9 MHz frequency range, it provided 10 preset channels with crystal-controlled stability. The dual BC603 receivers in the SCR 508 allowed commanders to monitor multiple frequencies simultaneously, a capability that would prove decisive in combat. The real revolution lay in frequency modulation itself. Edwin Armstrong's FM technology, licensed to the military, eliminated the static and interference that plagued amplitude modulation systems. While German tank radios picked up every electrical discharge as noise, American FM radios delivered clear voice communication even during artillery barrages. November 8, 1942. Operation Torch brought American armor to North Africa. The 2nd Armored Division's tanks landed near Safi and Fadala with SCR 508 radios that would soon demonstrate their superiority over German communications. The Afrika Korps, despite being the Wehrmacht's most experienced armoured force, operated under severe communication limitations. A standard German tank platoon of 5 vehicles included only 1 or 2 with full FUG-5 transceivers capable of both transmitting and receiving. The remaining tanks carried FUG-2 receivers only. They could hear orders but couldn't respond or report enemy positions. German tank platoons functioned through rigid hierarchy. The platoon leader transmitted orders that subordinate tanks acknowledged through actions rather than words. When command tanks were destroyed, Easily identified by their multiple antennae, entire platoons lost coordination. This vulnerability would prove catastrophic against American forces where every tank could assume command functions. The Battle of Kasserine Pass, February 14th to 24th, 1943, provided the first major demonstration of American radio superiority. Though tactically a German victory, the battle revealed capabilities that stunned Wehrmacht observers. During the confused fighting, scattered elements of the US 1st Armored Division maintained coordination across 50 miles of battlefield. Tank crews who had never met coordinated attacks warned each other of threats and called for artillery support through crystal-clear FM communications. German signals intelligence units intercepted American transmissions and noted exceptional clarity and coordination. The 10th Panzer Division's intelligence section reported that American units maintained communication at ranges where German radios produced only static. More disturbing was the realization that every American tank appeared capable of full transmission, not just command vehicles. The German Fu-G5 radios, operating on amplitude modulation in the 27.0 to 33.3 MHz range, suffered from fundamental limitations. The 10-watt transmitter struggled to reach 2 to 3 kilometers in ideal conditions, dropping to mere hundreds of meters when vehicles were moving. Every spark plug firing, every electrical motor, every track movement generated interference that AM systems couldn't filter. September 1943 brought American armour to Italy, where mountainous terrain should have negated radio advantages. Instead, FM technology proved even more valuable in conditions that rendered German AM radios useless. The SCR-508's frequency modulation handled the multipath interference of mountain valleys far better than amplitude modulation. American tanks coordinated movements through terrain where visual signals were impossible and German radios failed completely. During the advance toward Cassino, American armoured units demonstrated capabilities that defied German understanding. Tank platoons separated by ridgelines coordinated attacks with precision that German doctrine said required visual contact. The 1st Armoured Division's after-action reports described routine coordination at distances where German radios produced only static. June 6, 1944. As Sherman tanks rolled off landing craft at Normandy, their SCR-508 radios maintained contact with naval fire support, coordination impossible with German technology. But the hedgerow fighting revealed a critical gap. Tank radios couldn't communicate with infantry radios operating on different frequencies. The infantry's SCR-300 operated on 40.0 to 48.0 MHz, incompatible with tanks' 20.0 to 27.9 MHz range. This communication gap proved deadly in the bocage, where German infantry with Panzerfausts could approach American tanks while nearby American infantry had no way to warn them. American innovations solved the problem within weeks. Tank crews mounted EE-8 field telephones in ammunition boxes welded to tank exteriors, wired directly to internal communications. By Operation Cobra in late July, this simple modification revolutionized tank infantry cooperation. July 25th to 30th, 1944. Operation Cobra demonstrated the full potential of American radio superiority. The 2nd Armoured Division, commanded by Major General Edward H. Brooks, coordinated over 200 Sherman tanks through radio networks that enabled unprecedented battlefield control. German defenders from the Panzer Lehr Division faced an enemy that seemed to possess supernatural awareness. American tanks responded instantly to threats reported by other units miles away. Artillery strikes, coordinated through tank radios, arrived within minutes of target identification. The contrast with German capabilities was stark. Panzer Lehr, once Germany's premier armoured division, had been reduced to communication poverty. Most tanks operated without radios, depending on visual signals in terrain where visibility rarely exceeded 100 metres. The few functioning radios suffered from interference and limited range that prevented effective coordination. The irony was profound. Germany had pioneered radio use in armoured warfare. Heinz Guderian, the architect of Blitzkrieg, had insisted on radio equipment in tanks since the 1920s. His book Achtung Panzer, published in 1937, emphasized communication as essential to armoured operations. Guderian had developed radio communication systems that enabled tank officers to coordinate attacks. He understood that rapid armour advances required reliable communication. Yet by 1943, German tank production couldn't provide the radios Guderian's own doctrine demanded. German production statistics revealed the crisis. In 1943, Germany manufactured approximately 5,700 medium tanks, but fewer than 2,000 Fu-G5 transceivers. Many radios went to command vehicles and assault guns, leaving regular tank units desperately short of communication equipment. Soviet tank forces suffered even worse communication poverty. The T-34, despite being the most produced Allied tank, typically entered combat without any radio equipment. Soviet doctrine relied on flag signals and pre-battle planning, with catastrophic results against German forces in 1941. By 1943, Lend-Lease provided some relief. American radios, including SCR-508 sets, equipped Soviet command tanks. But even by war's end, only about 25% of Soviet tanks carried radios. The comparison highlighted American achievement. While the Soviet Union struggled to equip 1/4 of their tanks with any radios, America achieved 100% deployment of sophisticated FM systems. Motorola's Chicago factory represented American industrial mobilization at its peak. Before the war, the company manufactured car radios. Converting to military production required complete retooling and solving unprecedented technical challenges. Each SCR-508 required 2,748 individual components manufactured to exacting standards. The BC604 transmitter contained 474 capacitors and 385 resistors. Crystal oscillators had to maintain frequency stability despite temperature extremes and combat vibration. Production statistics told the story of American industrial might. 1942. 3,800 SCR-508 family radios. 1943, 11,400 units. 1944, 24,000 units. Total wartime production, over 50,000 tank radio sets. This production miracle ensured that all 49,324 Sherman tanks manufactured during the war received sophisticated radio equipment, an achievement no other nation approached. The SCR-508's advantages went beyond simple frequency modulation. Crystal-controlled frequency stability meant tanks could preset channels before battle and maintain alignment despite combat conditions. German Fu-G5 radios, using variable capacitor tuning, constantly drifted off frequency. The dual receiver configuration allowed commanders to monitor their platoon net and company command net simultaneously. Orders flowed down the chain of command instantly, while commanders maintained awareness of subordinate situations. The BC606 intercom system integrated seamlessly with the radio, allowing all crew members to alert the commander to threats. Throat microphones and noise-cancelling headphones enabled clear communication during combat. Many German tanks lacked intercoms entirely, forcing crews to communicate by touch or shouting. Power management provided another American advantage. The SCR-508 operated on either 12 or 24 volts, automatically adjusting to available power. The dynamotor power supply provided stable, filtered power that eliminated electrical interference. German radios, powered directly from vehicle electrical systems, picked up every spark as static. The tactical advantages of universal radio deployment transformed American armoured doctrine. The combat command structure, flexible task forces organised for specific missions, depended entirely on reliable communications, American commanders could create ad hoc battle groups from different units, confident they could coordinate through compatible radios. This flexibility baffled German commanders accustomed to rigid organizational structures necessitated by limited communications. During the Battle of Araucourt in September 1944, the 4th Armoured Division faced multiple German panzer brigades equipped with superior Panther tanks. The Germans had every advantage in armour and firepower. But American radio coordination proved decisive. Every Sherman could report enemy positions instantly. Tank destroyers received targeting information from tanks they couldn't see. Artillery observers in Sherman command tanks called in devastating barrages within minutes. Over 3 weeks, the 4th Armoured destroyed 281 German armoured vehicles, while losing only 41 Shermans, a 7-to-1 kill ratio that defied technical specifications. Throughout the war, German intelligence failed to grasp the significance of American communication superiority. Combat reports mentioned American coordination, but attributed it to training rather than technology. A captured September 1944 intelligence assessment stated, "American tank units demonstrate good radio discipline and coordination. This appears to result from extensive training and rigid communication procedures." The report completely missed the technological advantage. German tactics never adapted to American capabilities. They continued targeting supposed command tanks based on antenna configurations, not realizing every Sherman could coordinate battlefield responses. They planned ambushes assuming American tanks would lose coordination when separated, not understanding that radio contact maintained unit cohesion regardless of visual contact. March 1945. As American forces approached the Rhine, their communication superiority reached its zenith. The capture of the Remagen Bridge demonstrated the speed of American command and control. When the 9th Armoured Division discovered the Ludendorff Bridge intact, radio reports reached 1st Army headquarters within minutes. Within an hour, divisions across the entire front were shifting to exploit the opportunity. German forces, dependent on telephone lines that American aircraft systematically destroyed, couldn't respond with comparable speed. American radio coordination created an impenetrable defense of the bridgehead. Tank platoons from different battalions integrated seamlessly, coordinating fires through radio networks. German counterattacks, poorly coordinated due to communication failures, arrived piecemeal and were destroyed in detail. April 1945. The encirclement of the Ruhr pocket demonstrated the culmination of American communication superiority. American armoured columns from the 1st and 9th Armies coordinated a complex double envelopment entirely through radio communications. Inside the pocket, 325,000 German troops found themselves trapped, partly because their communications had collapsed. American fighter bombers, guided by radio-equipped forward air controllers, systematically destroyed German communication nodes. Wehrmacht units lost contact with higher headquarters and each other. Field Marshal Walter Model's final messages before communication failure revealed the German plight. No contact with adjacent units. No communication with higher headquarters. Fighting continues, but coordination impossible. American radio superiority profoundly affected the psychological experience of tank warfare. American crews fought with the knowledge they were never alone. Even when physically isolated, they remained connected through radio waves. German tank crews experienced the opposite, profound isolation. Unable to communicate, they fought individual battles within larger engagements. Otto Carius, one of Germany's most successful tank commanders, wrote in his memoir Tigers in the Mud about the challenges of limited communications, though he focused more on tactical aspects than the communication gap itself. The strategic implications extended beyond individual battles. American advances in 1944–45 maintained tempo partly through radio coordination that German forces couldn't match. The Third Army's race across France depended on radio networks that maintained control across hundreds of miles. German commanders consistently underestimated American capabilities because they couldn't conceive of the communication superiority Americans possessed. Heinz Guderian, in his role as Inspector General of Armoured Troops, recognized the problem but couldn't solve it. In a December 1944 memorandum, he acknowledged that American coordination negated German advantages in tank quality. After Germany's surrender, American technical intelligence teams evaluated German equipment. Their findings confirmed what combat experience suggested. German tanks often possessed superior armour and armament, but catastrophically inferior communications. U.S. Army Technical Intelligence Report. Number 176 concluded, German tank communications equipment was approximately 5 years behind American systems. The absence of frequency modulation, limited radio distribution, and poor electrical suppression created critical vulnerabilities. Soviet evaluators reached similar conclusions. The Red Army, given access to captured German equipment, chose to copy American radio designs rather than German systems for post-war development. Production and deployment statistics reveal the magnitude of American achievement. American radio production, SCR 508/5, 28/538 radios produced, 50,000 plus units. Sherman tanks produced 49,324 units. Radio deployment rate, 100%. Transmission power, 25 watts. Frequency stability, crystal-controlled plus or minus 0.01%. Range, moving, 7 miles. Range, stationary, 10 to 15 miles. German radio production FUG-5 transceivers produced, approximately 6,000 units. Medium-heavy tanks produced, approximately 12,000 units. Full transceiver deployment rate, approximately 20%. Transmission power, 10 watts. Frequency stability, variable plus or minus 1%. Range, moving, 0.5 to 1 mile. Range, stationary, 2 to 3 miles. Communication effectiveness. Average time for American fire mission, 3 to 5 minutes. Average time for German fire mission, 15 to 30 minutes. American tanks achieving coordination, 100%. German tanks with full communication, 20%. The radio superiority of Sherman tanks established principles that govern armoured warfare today. Modern main battle tanks carry communication suites that trace their lineage directly to the SCR 508, digital rather than analogue, but fundamentally based on universal deployment and reliable coordination. The German Bundeswehr, rebuilt in the 1950s, prioritised communications based on World War II lessons. Every Leopard tank manufactured has carried comprehensive radio systems. A Bundeswehr training manual explicitly states, "The defeat of superior German tanks by inferior American vehicles with superior radios teaches that. Information dominance outweighs platform superiority." Modern conflicts validate this lesson. In the 1991 Gulf War, coalition forces with superior communications destroyed Iraqi forces equipped with individually superior Soviet-designed tanks but inferior radios. In 2003, American forces again demonstrated that network-centric warfare defeats platform-centric warfare. The story of American Sherman tank radio superiority represents a victory in the electromagnetic spectrum that proved more decisive than advantages in armour or firepower. German tank crews fought their war partially blind to this revolution, discovering too late that every Sherman tank was not just a fighting vehicle, but a node in history's first battlefield network. The SCR 508 radio transformed the M4 Sherman from an adequate medium tank into a component of a weapons system that included every other American tank on the battlefield. This transformation proved more decisive than any improvement in armour or firepower could have achieved. Every Sherman tank carried the tools of victory, not just in its 75mm gun or sloped armour, but in the 181 pounds of radio equipment that connected its crew to every other American tank crew. This connection created a collective intelligence that no individual German tank, regardless of superiority in armour or firepower, could match. German forces discovered this reality through bitter experience. At Kasserine Pass, in Italy's mountains, across France's hedgerows, and in Germany's final battles, American tanks demonstrated coordination that German doctrine said was impossible without visual contact. The Wehrmacht never developed an effective counter because they never fully understood the technological gap. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel's reported comment at Germany's surrender, "We knew how to build better tanks, but you knew how to make them work together," captured a fundamental truth, whether accurately quoted or apocryphal. America had built not just 49,324 Sherman tanks, but 49,324 nodes in the world's first armoured battlefield network. The revolution in military affairs that historians identify with modern network-centric warfare actually began in 1942, when the first Sherman tank with an SCR-508 radio entered combat. From that moment, warfare changed forever. The side with superior communications would defeat the side with superior weapons, the network would defeat the platform, and the connected would overcome the isolated. This transformation occurred largely invisible to German forces. They saw American tactical superiority, but didn't recognize its technological foundation until far too late. By the time German commanders understood that every Sherman tank possessed communication capabilities that most German tanks lacked, the war was effectively decided. The German military's failure to recognize and adapt to American communication superiority stands as one of World War II's great intelligence failures. Despite countless battlefield encounters demonstrating American coordination advantages, German leadership never prioritized solving their critical communication weakness. They continued building superior tanks that fought as isolated individuals, while American forces built adequate tanks that fought as coordinated teams. In the end, the electromagnetic waves carried by SCR-508 radios proved more powerful than the armour-piercing rounds fired by German 88mm guns. The ability to coordinate, to share information instantly, to fight as a unified force rather than as individual vehicles. This invisible advantage determined victory more surely than any visible superiority in armour or armament. The Sherman tank's radio superiority changed warfare forever, establishing the principle that in modern combat, connection equals survival and isolation equals defeat. German troops discovered this reality on battlefields across 3 continents, learning too late that the Americans possessed not just numerical superiority, but technological superiority in the dimension that mattered most, the ability to fight as one. Summer 1943. Camp Crossville, Tennessee. The brown liquid fizzing in the bottle mesmerized the German soldier who had never seen anything like it. After 2 years fighting in North Africa, subsisting on hard biscuits and ersatz coffee, this sweet carbonated drink called Coca-Cola represented impossibility made real. It cost 5 cents from the camp canteen, the same price, guards informed him, that American children paid with their allowances. Across American prison camps that summer, 371,683 German POWs would confront a reality that contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught them about American weakness. They discovered a nation where ice cream was routine dessert, where soft drinks were everyday beverages, where candy bars were so common that guards gave them away. These simple foods, treats that most German children had never tasted, would systematically demolish Nazi ideology more effectively than any propaganda program. The mathematics of abundance were being written in sugar and carbonation, in chocolate and ice cream, revealing an American industrial capacity that rendered German deprivation not noble sacrifice, but needless suffering. What began as amazement at American confections would evolve into complete psychological transformation. The Desert's End. The Afrika Korps' surrender in Tunisia during May 1943 brought approximately 250,000 German and Italian soldiers into Allied captivity. These veteran desert fighters, who had pushed the British back to Egypt under Rommel's leadership, expected harsh treatment as prisoners. Nazi propaganda had prepared them for American brutality and starvation. Instead, within hours of surrender, they encountered American K rations. These field rations, which American soldiers routinely complained about, contained treasures: crackers, processed cheese, candy, fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, and cigarettes. German soldiers who had survived on minimal rations for months treated these emergency meals as feasts. According to military records, at the processing camps in North Africa, the US Army served pancakes with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk, foods that had vanished from German military rations years earlier. The systematic feeding of enemies with superior food began immediately, though its psychological impact would only be understood later. A German officer later testified to the International Red Cross, "We expected to be starved as prisoners. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own army had. This confusion about American resources began our education." The Liberty ships carrying POWs across the Atlantic in summer 1943 provided intensive education in American abundance. These vessels, mass-produced at unprecedented rates, one completed every 42 hours at peak production, transported up to 30,000 prisoners monthly to the United States. Naval records show that prisoner rations aboard these ships matched or exceeded standard crew provisions. Approximately 3,500 calories daily, including fresh bread, meat, vegetables, and coffee with sugar and milk. The ship's refrigeration systems, standard equipment on American vessels, maintained fresh food throughout the 2-week crossing. Most remarkably, documented accounts confirm that ice cream was served on multiple occasions during Atlantic crossings. The USS General M.B. Stewart's log from July 1943 records serving ice cream to prisoners on July 4th, using the ship's ice cream maker that produced 10 gallons per batch. For men who hadn't seen ice cream since before the war, this frozen dessert in the middle of the ocean defied understanding. When ships docked at ports like Norfolk and Newport News, German POWs encountered an America that Nazi propaganda had declared impossible. The Norfolk Naval Base, covering 4,300 acres with extensive waterfront facilities, handled more cargo daily than major German ports managed weekly. At the port exchanges, shops for dock workers, prisoners glimpsed shelves stocked with candy bars from major manufacturers like Hershey, Mars, and Nestlé. Military procurement records from 1943 show these exchanges stocked dozens of candy varieties, selling them at standard prices. 5 cents for most candy bars, the same price charged across America. The journey inland by train provided further education. Unlike the cattle cars used for transport in Europe, German POWs travelled in passenger coaches. The dining cars served full meals. Documented menus from July 1943 show fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. POWs discovered this wasn't special treatment, but standard American rail service. The prison camp system constructed across America housed POWs in conditions that exceeded Geneva Convention requirements. Camp Crossville, Tennessee, typical of the larger facilities, included electric lights, hot water, flush toilets, and heated barracks. But the camp exchanges, the PX stores, delivered the deepest impact. According to Army Quartermaster records, camp exchanges stocked multiple soft drink brands, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, various candy bars and confections, ice cream, where refrigeration permitted, cigarettes and tobacco, fresh fruit and snacks, beer, 3.2% alcohol content. Prisoners earned 80 cents daily for labour, later raised to $1. With candy bars at 5 cents and Coca-Cola at the same price, a day's wage could purchase 16 items, abundance beyond German imagination, where such products, if available at all, required special connections. Coca-Cola became the symbol of American industrial democracy. The Coca-Cola Company's wartime production reached remarkable levels. Company records show 5 billion bottles produced in 1943 alone. The military contract guaranteed 5-cent Coca-Cola to American servicemen worldwide, a commitment requiring unprecedented logistics. German prisoners discovered that this soft drink, unknown to most before capture, was ubiquitous in America. Every camp received regular deliveries. Work details observed vending machines and coolers everywhere, gas stations, factories, schools. Americans of all ages and classes drank it casually, discarding half-empty bottles without thought. The standardization astounded technically minded prisoners. Coca-Cola tasted identical whether consumed in Maine or Texas, a feat of quality control exceeding anything German industry achieved. The syrup concentrate, manufactured in Atlanta and distributed nationwide to bottling plants, represented industrial coordination that challenged Nazi assumptions about American chaos. Historical records from the Coca-Cola Company archives confirm that many prison camps received weekly deliveries of 200 to 300 cases, each containing 24 bottles. Camp Hearn, Texas alone consumed approximately 7,000 bottles weekly during summer, 1943. Ice cream in American prison camps seemed impossible to Germans who hadn't seen it since before the war. Yet Army records confirm that ice cream was regularly served in camps with adequate refrigeration during summer months. The military considered ice cream essential for morale, so important that specialized ice cream ships were built for the Pacific Fleet. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, the July 4, 1943, celebration included ice cream made on site. Prisoners watched as hand-cranked freezers produced gallons using ice, salt, cream, sugar, and flavorings. The casual use of scarce resources, ice in July, cream, sugar, for entertainment food, demonstrated priorities Germans couldn't fathom. By 1944, many camps had electric ice cream makers. The variety available, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, butter pecan, exceeded what German ice cream parlors offered before the war. Prisoners could purchase ice cream bars for 10 cents, ice cream sandwiches for the same price, or cups of various flavors. Army procurement records show that larger camps ordered 50 to 100 gallons of ice cream weekly during summer months. The frequency varied by location and season, but prisoners regularly enjoyed this frozen luxury that had vanished from German life. Sugar consumption in American prison camps delivered particularly powerful impact. In Germany, sugar was strictly rationed. Civilians received 280 grams monthly when available. In American camps, sugar sat in bowls on mess hall tables for unlimited use. Quartermaster records from 1943 to 1945 show camps receiving 100-pound bags of refined sugar weekly. Camp bakeries used sugar liberally. Cakes, cookies, and pies appeared regularly on menus. The mess halls sweetened coffee, tea, cereals, and desserts without restriction. One documented incident from Camp Aliceville, Alabama, illustrates the contrast. In August 1943, humid weather hardened several hundred pounds of sugar, making it difficult to use. Rather than steam and recover it as Germans would have, kitchen staff discarded it and ordered replacement supplies. German prisoners working in the kitchen were reportedly distressed by this waste. American chocolate consumption patterns revealed democratic abundance. Major manufacturers, Hershey, Mars, Nestlé, produced millions of bars monthly despite wartime restrictions. The military alone purchased £380 million of chocolate products during the war years. Prison camp exchanges stocked multiple chocolate varieties. The standard Hershey bar, D rations, emergency chocolate bars, and various candy bars containing chocolate were available for 5 to 10 cents. Prisoners discovered Americans had preferences among chocolate brands, casually choosing one over another. Red Cross packages, distributed monthly to prisoners, included chocolate bars among other items. The American Red Cross records show that standard parcels contained chocolate or candy bars, 2, instant coffee, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, soap. These packages supplemented regular rations, providing luxury items that exceeded what German civilians received as basic rations. Thanksgiving 1943 introduced German prisoners to American holiday abundance. This purely American celebration demonstrated national coordination of consumption that dwarfed German organizational efforts. Army records confirm that all prison camps served traditional Thanksgiving dinner: roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, coffee and milk. The logistics required, providing turkey dinners to 425,000 POWs plus millions of American servicemen worldwide, showcased organizational capacity. The fact that German prisoners received the same meal as American soldiers emphasized equality of treatment that contradicted Nazi racial hierarchy. Christmas 1943 brought unexpected generosity from American civilians. Church groups, civic organizations, and individuals sent packages to German POWs. The American Friends Service Committee alone distributed 50,000 Christmas packages to enemy prisoners. These packages typically contained homemade cookies, candy, toiletries, games and books, cigarettes, writing materials. Local communities near camps often provided additional support. In Tonkawa, Oklahoma, townspeople delivered homemade treats to German prisoners at Camp Tonkawa. In Hearne, Texas, church groups brought Christmas cookies and candy to Camp Hearne. This civilian kindness toward enemies challenged Nazi ideology fundamentally. Americans who had family members fighting against Germany nevertheless showed charity to German prisoners, demonstrating strength through mercy rather than vengeance. As labor shortages intensified, German POWs worked increasingly outside camps, witnessing American food production firsthand. By 1944, approximately 100,000 prisoners worked in agriculture and food processing, gaining intimate knowledge of American abundance. In Michigan orchards, prisoners picked cherries destined for maraschino production, those bright garnishes topping ice cream sundaes. The volume staggered them, single orchards producing tons of fruit for decorative purposes. At canneries, prisoners observed quality control that rejected perfectly edible food for minor imperfections. Del Monte records from 1944 show that approximately 15% of fruit was rejected for canning due to size irregularities or minor blemishes, typically diverted to animal feed. Sugar beet processing in Colorado and Nebraska revealed agricultural mechanization beyond German achievement. Single farms produced more sugar beets than entire German regions. Prisoners learned that American sugar production from both cane and beets reached approximately 7 million tons annually, explaining the casual abundance they witnessed. German prisoners working near schools witnessed early versions of organized school lunch programs. Children received hot lunches including milk, protein, and vegetables. The National School Lunch Act would formalize this in 1946, but precedent programs operated during the war. The milk program particularly impressed German observers. Many schools provided fresh milk to children daily. The logistics of daily delivery to thousands of schools demonstrated organizational capacity that Germany couldn't achieve for military supplies. Some school cafeterias offered ice cream for additional purchase. The concept of children buying frozen desserts at school while German children faced food shortages created profound impact among prisoner observers. When minimum security prisoners ate at American diners under guard, they encountered democratic abundance. These small restaurants offered menus that would have graced elite German establishments, available to anyone with modest funds. Documented prices from 1944 show hamburger, 25 cents, Coca-Cola, 5 cents, pie slice, 15 cents, ice cream sundae, 25 cents, full dinner special, 65 to 75 cents. The equality of service, anyone could order anything, contradicted German social stratification. A factory worker and bank president ate identical meals at adjacent counter stools, served by the same waitress for the same price. As prisoners gained access to American publications, they discovered production statistics that dwarfed German efforts. 1944 American production, documented figures. Sugar, approximately 7 million tons. Chocolate and cocoa products, 380 million pounds, military alone. Coca-Cola, 5 billion bottles, 1943 figure. Ice cream, over 500 million gallons. Milk, 119 billion pounds. German production, same period. Sugar, heavily rationed, primarily from beets. Chocolate, military priority only. Soft drinks, minimal production. Ice cream, virtually non-existent. Milk, severely rationed. These numbers, published openly in American media, demonstrated that America's wartime production exceeded Germany's peacetime peaks. By late 1944, German POWs were sending food packages to Germany rather than receiving them. Using camp wages, prisoners purchased American products to mail home: chocolate bars, instant coffee, canned goods. International Red Cross records confirm this reversal. German prisoners in America sent approximately 11 million parcels to Germany during their captivity, most containing food items. The impact on German families, receiving American abundance from imprisoned relatives while they faced starvation in freedom, profoundly undermined Nazi ideology. American rationing, implemented during the war, revealed the gulf between societies. Americans complained about sugar rationing of £2 monthly per person, more than triple the German allowance when available. American meat rationing at 28 ounces weekly per person exceeded what Germans received monthly. Even rationed, Americans maintained consumption levels, Germans considered impossible luxury. The Office of Price Administration records show Americans purchased £74 of sugar per capita in 1944 despite rationing, 10 times German consumption. Beyond Coca-Cola, prisoners discovered America's soft drink industry. Pepsi-Cola, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush and regional brands competed nationwide. The variety itself, multiple companies producing similar products, demonstrated market abundance impossible under German-controlled economy. Bottling plants operated in every major city. The technology, carbonation, bottling, capping, labelling, was standardized and efficient. Single plants produced millions of bottles annually. The distribution network reached every small town, gas station, and grocery store. American soft drink production reached billions of bottles annually by war's end, dozens of bottles per American citizen yearly. This single industry's output exceeded entire sectors of German consumer production. Spring 1945 brought the final blow. As American forces advanced through Germany, German POWs in America watched newsreels of GIs distributing chocolate and gum to German children. These children's joy at receiving American candy their own government couldn't provide completed the ideological demolition. The contrast was stark. American soldiers, advancing through enemy territory, carried enough candy to give away, while the German state that promised triumph delivered starvation. Films of concentration camp liberations showed American troops sharing rations with skeletal survivors, demonstrating humanity toward victims of the regime German soldiers had served. Between 1945 and 1946, German POWs returned to a destroyed homeland. Many prisoners had gained significant weight in American captivity, while their families lost weight to starvation in German freedom. They brought knowledge of abundance to a land of absolute scarcity. Medical examinations showed German POWs generally returned healthier than when captured. They returned to families weakened by deprivation. This physical evidence of American plenty versus German deprivation was undeniable. Many prisoners brought final Red Cross packages home, chocolate, coffee, and canned goods that became family treasures. Children who had forgotten chocolate's taste received Hershey bars from fathers who had eaten ice cream regularly in prison camps. Former POWs became unexpected advocates for the Marshall Plan. They had witnessed American abundance that wasn't zero-sum, prosperity through production rather than conquest. Their testimony that Americans could afford to rebuild enemies influenced German acceptance of American aid. These men understood that American power came from productive capacity, not extraction. They had seen a society wealthy enough to waste food while fighting a global war. This mental model, creation rather than conquest, shaped West Germany's economic approach. The German economic miracle of the 1950s was partially built on knowledge gained in American prison camps. Former POWs who had witnessed American production methods, distribution systems, and consumer abundance applied these lessons to German reconstruction. They had learned that mass production could make luxuries affordable, standardization enabled quality and efficiency, consumer abundance created political stability, industrial democracy could outproduce authoritarian control. These lessons, learned through Coca-Cola and ice cream, shaped a generation of German business and political leaders. The transformation of German POWs through American food abundance is documented in military quartermaster records, international Red Cross reports, corporate production records, particularly Coca-Cola archives, POW correspondence, censored but preserved, post-war interviews and memoirs, academic studies, particularly Arnold Kramer's extensive research. Arnold Kramer, the leading historian of German POWs in America, concluded that food abundance was central to ideological transformation. His research confirmed that casual American plenty accomplished what formal re-education programs couldn't: complete demolition of Nazi superiority myths. The statistical summary. The numbers tell an irrefutable story. Average POW consumption, 1943 to 1946, daily calories, 3,300 to 3,600. Sugar, 4 pounds monthly available. Meat, 32 ounces weekly. Milk, 1 quart daily available. Ice cream, served regularly during summer. Soft drinks, unlimited at 5 cents each. German civilian rations, same period. Daily calories, 1,200 to 1,500. Sugar, 280 grams monthly when available. Meat, 10.5 ounces weekly, often unavailable. Milk, severely rationed. Ice cream, non-existent. Soft drinks, none available. These disparities weren't propaganda but documented reality. Enemy prisoners ate better than German civilians, proving American abundance extended even to defeated foes. The POW experience with American food culture influenced post-war Germany profoundly. Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949, becoming a symbol of American alliance. Ice cream parlors, modeling American soda fountains, appeared in German cities. Candy bars and chewing gum became symbols of recovery. Former prisoners of war often became importers of American food products, understanding their appeal from personal experience. They knew these products represented more than taste. They symbolized abundance, democracy, and modernity. The introduction of supermarkets to Germany in the 1950s was championed by former POWs who had witnessed American grocery stores. They understood that democratic abundance required new distribution methods, not just production increases. In various post-war interviews and memoirs, German POWs consistently identified food abundance as transformative. A former Africa Corps officer stated in a 1975 interview, "We expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, we found a nation that could give ice cream to enemies. That's when we knew we had lost more than a war, we had lost our entire worldview." Another veteran, interviewed for a documentary in 1985, recalled, "My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future. It was sweet, fizzing, completely unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel. That drink contained everything Nazi Germany wasn't: abundant, democratic, joyful." These testimonies, collected across decades, confirm that American food abundance achieved what military defeat alone couldn't: complete ideological transformation. The men who arrived as Nazi warriors left as witnesses to democratic prosperity. Historians recognize the German POW experience in America as remarkably successful re-education through abundance rather than propaganda. The program succeeded because it relied on observation rather than instruction. POWs saw American society functioning at peak productivity while treating enemies with dignity. The food aspect was crucial because it was universal. Everyone understands hunger and satisfaction. Undeniable. Weight gain and health improvement were visible. Continuous, 3 meals daily plus canteen purchases. Comparative, prisoners knew German deprivation intimately. Every meal became a lesson in American industrial capacity. Every Coca-Cola demonstrated standardization and distribution. Every ice cream sundae showed that abundance could be democratic. Children of prisoners of war grew up hearing about American abundance in prison camps. These stories, initially seeming fantastic, were validated as West Germany recovered and American products became available. The mythology of American plenty, born in prison camps, shaped generations of German-American relations. Many POW children later studied or worked in America, drawn by their fathers' stories of impossible abundance. They found the reality matched the tales: supermarkets stocked with variety, soda fountains serving sundaes, candy aisles offering dozens of choices. This multi-generational impact extended beyond individuals. West German business culture absorbed lessons about consumer abundance, quality standardization, and democratic markets. The economic miracle wasn't just about production, but about creating abundance for ordinary citizens. Today, McDonald's operates over 1,400 restaurants in Germany. Coca-Cola is ubiquitous. Ice cream is ordinary. The transformation from scarcity to abundance, initiated in American prison camps, is complete. Yet the historical lesson remains powerful: ideological transformation through abundance rather than deprivation, kindness rather than cruelty, demonstration rather than propaganda. The German POWs who couldn't believe ice cream and Coca-Cola in American prison camps witnessed democracy's ultimate weapon: the ability to create such abundance that it could be casually shared with enemies. The story of German POWs and American food abundance represents history's most unusual victory: a war won through generosity, an ideology defeated by ice cream, a worldview shattered by soft drinks. These men experienced transformation not through punishment, but through plenty. They arrived believing in German superiority and American weakness. They left understanding that American strength came from productive capacity so vast it could waste resources without concern. The society that could give Coca-Cola to prisoners for 5 cents possessed power beyond military might. The ice cream sundae, with its layers of excess, ice cream, syrup, whipped cream, nuts, cherry, became a metaphor for American abundance. Each component alone exceeded German dreams. Combined, they represented impossible luxury made routine. That enemies could order seconds while German children faced hunger revealed the totality of Nazi failure. Former POWs often recalled specific moments of revelation: the first Coca-Cola's fizz, the first spoonful of ice cream, the first bite of a Hershey bar. These sensory memories carried more power than any argument. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. The transformation was complete and irrevocable. Men who had marched for the Third Reich returned as apostles of abundance, carrying the revolutionary message that prosperity came from freedom, not conquest. They had learned that America's secret weapon wasn't military might, but the ability to give ice cream to enemies. In the end, the bottles of Coca-Cola and dishes of ice cream served in American prison camps achieved what armies could only attempt: the complete transformation of enemy hearts and minds. The German POWs who couldn't believe such abundance existed became its greatest witnesses, carrying home the truth that democracy tasted like chocolate and freedom fizzed like carbonation. Their story reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are won not through destruction, but through demonstration, not through taking, but through giving, not through hatred, but through the simple act of serving ice cream to enemies on a hot summer day. The men who experienced American abundance as prisoners became freedom's most unlikely ambassadors, transformed forever by the impossible reality of Coca-Cola and ice cream in American prison camps.